Welcome. As you join the call, it will be nice to know where you're joining from. So if you could please add your location next to your name, that will be great.
I don't know how to do that.
Oh, okay. So if you go to the three dots on the frame, yeah, click on it or right click on it and it should show you rename. And you can rename yourself.
You said the three dots.
Yes, the three dots next to the frame, that picture you have.
Not on the top in the upper right hand.
Right, yes, that's one.
All I see, it says chat, meeting setting, minimize, meeting and background.
Oh, not the Zoom. The frame that houses, I think, your name this time. You right click on it and then, yeah.
Let's see. Well, I'm from New York, Queens.
That's okay. That's the easiest one. You could type in the chat box to welcome. All right. It would just be nice to know where people are joining from. All right. So we are going to start. Just so you know, this session is being recorded. If you are on camera, I don't see anybody on camera, but if you're on camera and you don't want to be famous, you can just hide your picture or go off camera. So I decided to do this session because a lot of times people ask me, how can I become a Scrum Master? Well, how do I become an Agile coach? Or perhaps they're asking me how I got into Scrum Mastering. So I thought, rather than answering individuals, why don't I just make this session, have it recorded and upload it on YouTube and refer people to it. People are just joining. Okay, so hence this session, and I want to make it interactive as possible. So I don't have all the answers. Welcome as you join. I don't have all the answers, but if you ask me questions, I would be able to dig into my memory of what I have, or perhaps I don't have that, and be able to share what has worked for me. So I've got some slides. But feel free to stop me at any point in time or throw your question in the chat box, whatever works for you. Okay, before I share my slide, any questions so far? All right, so I'll just share mine. And I don't have anyone moderating for me or for co-facilitating, so you might find out I pause from time to time just to either let people into the meeting or to check the chat box. So let's do this. All right, a bit about myself. My name is Kemi Raji. I am a trainer. I train people on Scrum, Agile, facilitation skills, and any training as it relates to someone becoming an Agile coach or knowing how to do their work better. I'm a mentor and a coach, not just an Agile coach, but a professional coach as I'm doing my coactive and ask certification right now. In terms of my Scrum Alliance path, I am a certified enterprise coach as well as a certified team coach. And I have my good old PMP. So I used to be a project manager in my days. I've got a master's degree in international development, which I didn't get to use because they didn't want someone without experience. So everywhere you go, every sector you want to find yourself or you want to switch to, there is always this barrier. So it's not just trying to get into Scrum or trying to get into Agile that has that hurdle that you have to cross. I have over 15 years experience working with delivery teams. 5 of this has been with coaching executives on Agile transformation. And I'm the director of Sprintify, Inc. I have this platform as well where I match people who want to be a Scrum Master or Agile coach to Agile coaches or Scrum Master that are already in the community. And that's a Discovering Agile community. All right, what is Sprintify about? Sprintify, we provide training, we provide workshop on Agile, Scrum, and facilitation and coaching. Then we mentor aspiring Scrum Masters, as well as providing on-the-job coaching to Scrum Masters and Agile coach. So if you're new to the Agile or Scrum and you've just recently got a job, we coach, and then we do resume review and interview preps. So just a quick question. Does a Scrum Master need to have a technical background? This is one question that I do get. So in your opinion, and if you could type in a chat box, does a Scrum Master need to have a technical experience? Not what you've been told, but what do you think? No. Okay, no. So great, a Scrum Master does not need to have a technical background. When you think about it, Scrum Agile is now outside of software, outside of IT. I have worked in organizations and I've worked with teams where they are building, creating content that involves no coding, and I was a Scrum Master. I've worked in teams where it is simply about the branding of that organization, not a single code. I've worked with teams where it is just metrics. They were thinking about how do we calculate the metrics so that we can give a better customer experience for the people that we are supplying some appliances to. So this was a manufacturing company. So whatever domain that you're currently is, you will find that they are doing Agile and some form of the Agile methodology, Kanban, Scrum, Lean, they are doing something similar to that. So you want to tap into that first and say, I don't even need a technical background. I need a domain knowledge to be able to get the job. So we kind of eliminated that myth. But someone said here that not required, but it could help. It could help if you want to do IT, if you want to be in software. Perhaps that would help. But I have found out that when a Scrum Master has that technical knowledge, it sometimes gets in the way. It sometimes gets in the way in the sense that you start to second guess your team. But if you, as a Scrum Master that has technical knowledge, is able to be non-judgmental or even have a beginner's mind when you're meeting with your teams, then it doesn't get in the way. All right, next question that always pop out is role versus title. I have never done a Scrum Master role. In my organization, we don't have a Scrum Master title. Well, I'm a BA, but then I want to cross into Scrum, and I've never done that because I just can't put it in my resume because that's not what I do. One thing I want to clarify first is the difference between the between the role and the title. Mm-hmm. I do the jump. So a role is your functionality, the part you play in organization, the part you play within your team, and it just describes your responsibilities. So in this case, a Scrum Master. A Scrum Master is a role. It's not a title. What is a title? It's a label, and often this is relates to what HR would often have in their hierarchy. right? So it carries more social weight if you were to go to a mentoring, a meetup, and someone was to ask you, well, what do you do? Well, I'm a manager. Oh, wow, a manager. Wow, that's good. But when someone asks you, what do you do? And you say you're a Scrum Master, they will be like, oh, okay. Well, what does a Scrum Master do? Because that's a role you perform, right? And then a title can mean different things within the organization. I have been in a role with working in an organization where my title was that of a senior project manager. I didn't do anything project manager. But what I did was a Scrum Master role, right? So an example of a title is a senior developer. And many a times I've worked with teams where the developer is playing the role of a Scrum Master. So they're coding, and at the same time, they're facilitating conversation, facilitating the teams. So when you, on your resume, if you, and another thing is that a lot of these organizations, there is no title in their HR label of a Scrum Master. I have seen VPs, AVP, especially in the banks, AVP something, something, and they're still a Scrum Master, or even directors level, they're still Scrum Master. So there is no line if you are doing the role of a Scrum Master within the team or within an organization, but on your maybe signature or within the HR, your job is that of a manager. So your title is a manager. If you decide to start looking for a role as a Scrum Master and you're playing that role, but your organization doesn't recognize that role within their HR, there is no crime to add manager / Scrum Master. So that's not a lie if you're playing that role. So I always say to people, you can have BA and be able to still add the role of a Scrum Master to it, provided you are playing that role. So I would like to hear from you. What do you make of this distinction? Scrum Master being a role, not a title, and you can play it alongside what you do. I'm going to pause for a second. Anyone, what do you make of this? How many people play the role of a Scrum Master, some form of it, in your current job? And please, you can unmute yourself if you, I believe that functionality is there.
Yeah, my name is Renee. I agree that in most of my roles I've done Scrum Master duties without being labeled a Scrum Master. So I've been in leadership roles, management roles for a long time. And now I work for a tech startup as a development coordinator. And a lot of the things I do, Scrum plays a large part of that, even though I'm not labeled as a Scrum Master.
So are you trying to, thank you for that, are you looking for a role as a Scrum Master now?
I am, yes.
Okay. With what you know now, do you feel comfortable saying, hey, I'm a Scrum Master?
Oh, definitely. When my manager asked me about the certification course I was taking, and I told her, and she said, well, what is a Scrum Master? And I explained to her, and I was like, yeah, kind of sort of what I do here when I, facilitate different things. And so she was like, yeah, and I kind of just left it at that. So I'm very confident in adding that to my resume as well.
Yeah. And you can even, what is your current role now? I'm sorry, what is your title at your workplace?
Development coordinator for a tech startup, but a large part of my role is basically learning and development. So I facilitate training courses for the product that the company created. It's a cloud-based app.
Oh, okay. So even within your job, you still have opportunity to get that Scrum Master role going on. And that's one thing I wanted to say, that don't limit yourself to IT, right? Renee is doing training, learning, and development, and there is still that opportunity that you can tap into.
And even in healthcare, I worked at Blue Cross Blue Shield years ago, and I performed Scrum Master duties there as well, and that was nothing related to technical. So you probably have already been performing Scrum duties without even realizing it, whether you're in a tech world or not.
Absolutely. Thank you, Renee. Okay, you've got your hand up. You got a question?
No, I wanted to add to what Renee just said. So on the Scrum Master, I believe it's more like a role instead of a title, because most of the skills one needs there are soft skills, not the hard skills. So it goes along with like the transparency and adaptability and all those pillars. They are mostly soft skills that can be applied in any career. For me, I'm in procurement and supply chain, and I'm pivoting to Scrum. So initially when I had my training, I just had this mindset it was just IT, because everything, all the examples they were giving were just IT.
Mm-hmm.
So after that, I had to like sit back and do some research. I was like, no, Scrum Master is more than IT certification. So it made a lot of sense to me then.
Yeah, thank you, okay, for that wonderful insight. Yeah, it is not about IT, and we're going into, I think I have some, let me just check. Yeah, okay. John said, my title is Scrum Master, my role accountability is also, yeah, senior. Yeah, that is also something. For some organizations, they do have that luxury of actually recognizing Scrum Master as a title. For some organizations, they don't. You are still a project manager or a product manager or something else, and you play the role of a Scrum Master. Okay, all right. All right, job search coach. Okay, thank you. Okay, all right. So to the question of what is a Scrum Master, where can I do Scrum outside of IT software? Because often it's all about IT, or you ask people and they're learning cloud or they're learning networking, and don't get me wrong, I've done Scrum Mastering in all these domains and work with teams. And one thing I didn't state at the beginning of the session is that I don't have any technical background. I'm from a management background, and even my master's degree is international development. So you could tell that there was nothing technical, software related in me. But do I understand some of the language that they speak? Yeah. Do I get lost into the weeds? Yes, I do. But one thing I do use very well is asking stupid questions. So when they're talking and I don't have a clue, I would just say, can you just break this down? Because I don't have a clue what you're talking about. If it relates to how I can help them. If it doesn't, I would just say, do you have every information that you need? Yes. All right, great. When can we start? But on the other hand, like I said, I've worked with teams where it is nothing software. Did I feel at home in non-IT and non-software teams? Not really, because it is still a different ball game. As a Scrum Master, you have to play. So you don't even need to have 100% knowledge of that domain, but you have at least 80% of idea of what's going on. So if they're talking, you have an idea of what's going on. And I don't want you to take my words. Yes, you will get it, Raina. I don't want you to take my words for it and where I've worked. I want you to look at this people doing it so that you can research them and see that they're actually thriving. So wedding planner, and I will have the link in my last slide. Wedding planning. This event planner they do their wedding planning based on Scrum. That's what they use. Their website says Scrum Wedding. And they would assign the roles just as it is in Scrum. The product owner is typically the bride, because as you know, women, we can go gaga on when it comes to wedding. The product owner is the bride. In some cases, they have the groom join in so that they get all the requirements of stakeholder. And there has been occasions where the groom is the product owner. And then you have the wedding planner themselves being the Scrum Master. And then there are all the developers. So the developers are the other vendors that get the work done. And they often do the ceremonies, maybe in a very lightweight, but they do the ceremonies in the sense that there's a daily huddle. They modified it maybe every other day, depending on how frequent they want to make. And they have the sprint planning, the demo and everything, and they get the vendors together in one room, and everyone works and to the success of the wedding. So check that out and see how they use it for events planning. And this might even get you some ideas. So if you're thinking of how can you get into Scrum or utilize Scrum in a very creative way, this is one of it. You can plan your friend's sister, brother, whoever's wedding and say, hey, how about I get some experience using this? So this is one way to get experience. Another one is a non-for-profit organization. I've seen a lot of people from the non-for-profit asking, how can we utilize it? Only last week, someone reached out to me and said, oh, I see you have some experience in Scrum. Can you help us in this NGO? And I thought, okay, great. But prior to that, 3 years ago, someone reached out to me from Kenya, and he described what they were working on, which I had no clue. But I said, what exactly do you want to accomplish? And he told me. So I used an example that it could relate to. I think I used a wedding because in Africa, weddings are usually a big thing. I think it spans across days. So I gave him that example of how are you going to plan it? He sort of like drew out the wedding, and then he said, oh yeah, that's a lot of work that goes in the wedding planning. I was like, yeah. So he went back to his team, and because the team were afraid that they don't have a lot of work to do. And he came back to me, I think a month or two after, and said, well, my team are afraid. I said, what happened? You've been kicked out? And he said, no, we just discovered that we have a lot of work and we didn't know this. So creating visibility for the work that they needed helped them to, one, realize that they needed more people, more hands on deck, and two, they need funding. So approach a NGO, charity organization, try to introduce them to this because they are beginning to go that way of Agile, and they're looking for people to help them out. Scrum at home. This is the easiest part of it. I practice this at home. There are a lot of write-ups from people on how they've used Scrum at home. The way I've used it when my kids were a lot younger, now they're 20 and 18, we use Scrum, and then we'll have the task board. We will meet every other day to kind of like, hey, where are you in terms of the chores and the homework and everything that needs to be done. And then we used to run 1 week sprint. Yeah, 1 week sprint. So every end of sprint, we review what has been done. However, for each thing that they're doing every day that they say they're done, I, as a product owner, we have to review it. So the cleaning, for instance, I have a definition of done. So I've got boys. They're not always the cleanest people. So I write them and say, this is what definition of done means. This has to be done, this has to be done. And that's the only time I can accept it. So we actually embodied Scrum. It so much helped me because I not only was I experiencing Scrum outside of IT, I was actually introducing my kids to that concept, and it helped them in their studies as well because they became creative and as well as not feeling overwhelmed with the homework that they needed to do. Another form of Scrum at home was a guy who, when he had his boy, the boy was diagnosed with cerebral palsy, and they used Scrum. So the link, the TED Talk link, it's on the last deck that I have. They use TED Talk to organize health. And health professionals and how they're going to interact with the boy. This is a boy that the doctor had given the prognosis that is never going to work. And I think 5 years or so down the line, the boy was kicking football around. And they credited it to using Scrum. They call it Agile. Another one is another TED Talk of a guy who used Agile at home for his autistic son, right? That helped the boy to have a more structured, as I don't know if you know about neurodivergence, but they need structure. So having Scrum at home, having Agile being embodied at home, helped that boy to be more settled and less anxiety. And as the boy gained more confidence in himself, they actually started using it for all the kids at home. Very interesting video or recording to listen to. So look at that, get some inspiration, start using Scrum at home or with your family, brothers, sisters, and even friends, and say, hey, we want to plan this, create a mini project for yourself within your community. And then start practicing it. That's another way to gain experience. I'm going to pause for a second here, get your thoughts on some of the examples I've given. What are you making of it, of them?
Hi, Kimmy. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
Hi, this is Jana.
Hi, Jana.
I really love the example of the wedding. Actually, my aunt is getting married in October, and my other aunts and I are helping her plan it. And so never thought about using Scrum for that. We're organizing it and helping her. But I would like for us to try to use, Scrum to get all the vendors and all the tasks and work in sprints. So that's cool.
There you go. And you probably will be wondering, and this is for everybody, how can you then take this to a formal situation? So you got an interview, you got a job interview, and maybe the wedding that Jana is thinking of organizing is the only thing that she's ever done in Scrum. You can actually bring this experience to and say, hey, I don't have Scrum experience in a formal setting, but this is what I've done in an informal setting. I interviewed for a job and I think I got the job because the fact that I use it at home. So I didn't, this was early days in my Scrum journey. I didn't have experience of that particular question they were asking, and I said, no, I don't have that, but at home, this happened. And the interviewers were like, wow, that's great, right? So it is okay to bring these kinds of examples to an interview format, to interview setting, and they would gladly accept that. Remember, Scrum Mastering is all about the right attitude. It's all about having the right attitude. It's all about having the transferable skills and the mindset, not necessarily, oh, well, I know Scrum. To be honest, I always run away from people who are Scrum rigid. If I have been in interviews, interviewing people where they were just quoting the Scrum guy says, the Scrum guy says, so nah. This person is not is going to be a Scrum police, and I need someone who has more flexibility, someone that can help the team to grow, not someone telling the team what the Scrum guide says or not. Because after all, that Scrum guide is just 17 pages. You can only do so much. Any other thoughts around how you can use Scrum?
I definitely want to implement this in my home with the example that you gave. I have a 20-year-old and an 18-year-old as well, and a 6-year-old. So one of my daughters is getting into data analytics and the other is getting into interior design. And then my youngest son, he is into coding, but I think it'd be good to implement this so that they can get into the habit of doing it as well.
Absolutely. Start now. Start now. I'm on the board of Agile Alliance, and I think one thing we kind of like keep seeing is the fact that we need to take Agile to schools. We need to take Agile to the younger generation, because when you look at the way they learn in a very different way than we learn, right? And they don't want to be told what to do. Having visibility means that you can actually have all the tasks that needs to be done, agree on when it needs to be done, and step back. When I was doing it with my boys, or prior to that, when it comes to doing the house chores, it's always a screaming match. Well, go and do that, Mom. Yeah. But the moment the Scrum, the board went up, and they agree to the time that they're going to do stuff, I don't even bother. When it comes to the deadline, that's when I ask. But they are even more conscious, because they will say, well, I'm supposed to finish this by this time. I better do it before Mom start coming to me. All right. So thank you so much for sharing this. Someone says, I'm going to use it in my relationship. Wow, it would be nice to hear how it works, Ike. Does it count to raise 2 kids without vaccine and vegan? Never use. I am not sure what that question is, Beatrice. Do you care to elaborate?
I don't know if I could use the example on how I raise my kids in this way, because you know, sometimes they say as a Scrum Master or Agile coach, you're not able to take decisions, because that's what most of the people in the management area are afraid of. And I've been taking risk and taking decisions since I have my firstborn, and there's no more risk than raising kids like that and going against the system. So I don't know if this is a valid example to say.
That's a very tricky one. One thing I do know is that a Scrum Master and Agile coach does not ask for permission. You tend to ask for forgiveness. I don't know if that's what you meant, Beatrice, because when you get into an organization as an Agile coach or Scrum Master, I'm going to just stay Scrum Master because it is interchangeable. When you get into a Scrum Master role within an organization, you go in and they're asking you, can you help with this? Can you help with that? But by the time you get comfortable or you get a lot of resistance from people, it can be very hard for you to do what you had in mind or what you've been asked to come and do. So a Scrum Master needs to be able to say, well, this is not working and this is the way we're going to do it. But you still need to bring your human side to it. So which means that you're hearing from other people, you're bringing our voices together and making and supporting them to make that decision. There will be times where the people that you think that you want to help are not ready. You have to be willing and able to step back, right? So no attachment to whatever suggestions that you're making, right? So to your point, Beatrice, you've gone through all the risks and everything. That would help you in determining the level of risks that you want to take within an organization, right? Or to say to them, here are some of the risks which I've taken, and here are the consequences or the impact which it has made, right? I hope that sort of like clarified your question, Beatrice. Okay. All right. Any other thoughts or comments or questions? Okay, Robert is going and raised.
Hi, yes, my name is Madrea, and when you were talking about bringing Scrum into schools, I thought about, I have an education background. I have a communications degree along with a master's in training development. And when I used to be in the classroom prior to now that I'm counseling, I know that we had a training that was kind of like project-based management, but they called it PBL. And so what we would do is create projects for the kids. And I guess it's kind of like sprints, because we would choose, this is what you need to do and get it done by the end of the week. And then next week we'll work on another thing. And then until the project is complete so that they can display it for the community. And so I don't know, I guess it kind of hit a chord that some schools that I worked in are already doing it. It's just not called that. They call it a PBL, or the teachers or the project-based managers. So that's very interesting that it could be used everywhere.
That's right. I think one thing I did miss on my slide is the Agile in education. Yes, there are a lot of people, teachers. If you go on Scrum Alliance website, they actually have a certification which is called CAL K-12. And these are for educators who are interested in bringing Scrum into their classrooms. There's this woman I think she's based in Chicago. She's been leading this in that state where she is. I can't remember the title she has, but she has this kind of title that can change the school's format of delivery. She's not able to change the curriculum, but she can change the how the curriculum was delivered. So that's what she's been doing across the state, and getting more buy-in from teachers who wants to get the students to be more creative. I think the example which she gave when I spoke to her was in the educator sector, we have one way or two ways in which a student should learn or even relay what they've learned. And she's trying to make that different, because people learn differently and they would interpret things differently, right? So, Robert, if you want to take that up, yes, there is that opportunity, or there is the need, that's what I'm looking for, to do that. I know a lot of teachers who are Scrum Masters, and they're using that in their classrooms. They're actually certified Scrum Masters with Scrum Alliance. All right. So the role of a Scrum Master, the new Scrum Guide has actually changed to accountabilities. And you might have seen this by, I highlighted some of these words or statements. And this is just to show you that what a Scrum Master does, either you're already doing it, or you can do it, or you have transferable skills, right? So this is it, coaching the teams. A lot of times we coach, a friend will come to you and say, hey, I have an issue. And then you start to ask questions. What is it? What is happening to you? What do you need from me right now? And some people would, or let me just say, few of the people I've spoken to get fixated fixated on the word Scrum team or product owner or Scrum within the organization. One thing that I always suggest is that remove Scrum out of anything that you're reading and just insert what you're currently doing into it. So whether you're a project manager, coaching, where is the Scrum? Yeah, helping Scrum team to focus on creating high value increments and meet definition of done. If you remove the Scrum and just read it as helping team focus on creating high value, you could see yourself there. So don't worry about the word Scrum, because the Scrum guide, it has to contain Scrum, right? So coaching team members, if you work in a team already, you already do that, right? Helping, and I want you to note how many times the word helping or help appears in the Scrum guide, all right? So helping create high value increments, causing the removal of impediments. Impediment is basically something that is getting in the way. How do you ensure that this is done, right? Ensuring that events takes place and are positive, productive, and kept within time box. Event is basically meetings within Scrum, right? Here's a continuation. Helping find techniques. So this is what a Scrum Master would do for a product owner. Helping find techniques, right? How do you help people that you're working with find different way of working? Helping understand the need for clear and concise requirement, if you remove the word backlog. Helping establish empirical product planning. You plan, even if you going on holiday, right? You have to do some form of planning. We all do that. Facilitating stakeholder collaboration. And then for the organization as a whole, you're leading training and coaching. You're leading training and coaching, right? You're planning and advising. You're helping employees and stakeholders understand. You're removing barriers, right? This is what a Scrum Master does on the 3 levels that Scrum Guide has prescribed. So working with a team, working with a product owner, and working with the organization. In this case, the organization could be leaders or managers, but you're working for the greater good of the organization. So how many times did you see the word helping? Anyone?
A lot.
Sorry?
A lot.
A lot. Okay. And what does that mean? That you are having to help?
I'm trying to still figure out how can I merge Scrum with what my profession is. I'm an LPN in the medical field, and I'm still kind of like, I don't get me wrong, like I train a lot of nurses, even friends, for certain positions and show them certain techniques. I'm like, that's like a Scrum Master, I guess, like helping, I guess, my business to, hire other nurses so they could, be on board and stuff. So I'm just still trying to figure it out.
Yeah, helping comes, thank you so much for that. Helping comes 5 times. So you are helping the the nurses. And if you look at it in a very systemic way, you're helping the organization.
Yes.
Right, Latoya? Okay. And then when you look at it, there is someone there with a vision, right? Or maybe you are the one with that vision. All right. How do you coordinate that? How do you get to the finishing line? Right. Yeah. So when you think of your health, and I think you should watch that TED talk about how health professional was coordinated for the boy who has cerebral palsy. It might give you some ideas on how you can structure your team. And in some cases, it doesn't have to be that Scrum is the way to go, right? It can be Kanban as well. However, because we don't often find a job will request Kanban coach, people don't tend to lean towards learning about Kanban. However, a lot of organizations would use a mix of Kanban, Lean, Scrum, what's the other ones, Rob, and all those other ones, Save, Less, they will use a mix of everything. I have worked with in an organization where not a single time did I do anything Scrum, and I was called a Scrum Master, and I thought, oh, wow, where is the Scrum? All I was doing was just Kanban. And I had to say to them, I'm not a Scrum Master. I'm kind of like a task master, which is what, or a Kanban coach, right? So look within your team. What is a problem that you're trying to solve? And then that can help you tailor the framework that you're doing. So you don't get so hung up on, it has to be Scrum, but it's more of, what is a problem we're trying to solve? And it might be that the training, you want to create visibility. So who has had training? Who hasn't had training? Or who can train people? Or who is not willing to train people? Right? Yeah. So you can it could be that you want to create visibility, that. Or it could be that you want to create a situation where everyone has some form of onboarding. Right. That I'm just making it up without knowing what you're trying to solve, Latoya.
Okay.
But looking at the health sector, what is the problem that are there? And how can we turn this to a project? I have turned my my career progression into a project, right? And I got my task board all done, all laid out, and I move them as I complete. It helps because what I was trying to accomplish was visibility on my journey, and that helped a lot. All right. So a lot of the times the Scrum Master is helping others to get the work done. All right. Gopar, you had your hand raised. Sorry.
Yes, thanks, Kemi. I was just gonna sort of add to what you said, or what you've just said, in terms of like when you said helping others, and I think one thing that's really sort of helped me try to kind of figure out how my current experience relates to potentially going to Scrum Master role. I kind of think of, all the occasions where, I've had to help lead the team and do it in such a way where, I'm thinking about their kind of growth and their progression. And, as a team, we shared the same sort of values, we were there for the same reasons, and just kind of thinking of scenarios where, you kind of put their kind of outcomes above your own, because at the end of the day, you're, at least in my opinion, as a Scrum Master, you're not there to sort of take credit for the work that's being delivered, but it's a team effort. And in a weird sort of way, it's kind of like if you help other people to succeed and grow and do the best they can do, you do get something back from that. It might not always be tangible, but I think, at least in my view, that's kind of one of the reasons why I would want to be a Scrum Master. And also, like I said, if you can kind of like relate those sort of feelings and situations in your current work, I think those are kind of good examples you could probably bring up in interviews, or maybe mention in your resume or CV. Yeah,
absolutely. And you're just hitting the nail right on the head, Gopher. You're just hitting. A Scrum Master is not a role that you want to sit back and be thanked for it, or be, and I'm not saying that people are not appreciative of what you do, but it is so hard for you to see your contributions unless your team embarks on that journey. I worked with a guy some years ago, and every time I approached him, he would just roll his eyes. And I had to ask him one day, or apologize. I said, I'm really sorry. I know I can be a pain in the backside. And he says, no, you're not in a pain, but your role is, and I'm really struggling with it. So people would sometimes see you as, or see your role as something that they don't want to deal with. And that's because you you want them to, or you're supporting them in such a way that they become more productive, or they see a different way of working, but they just want to code. They just want to get the value done. But as a Scrum Master, you know that there are other ways in which they can get things done. So it is a role where you don't want to, you're not expecting to be thanked, but you know that when your team moves forward, that is your thank you there. Yeah. All right. So just move on to, so qualities of a Scrum Master, and we've been talking about this for some time. Sorry, qualities of a Scrum Master. I created a deck, a poster for that. I am going to share that, but let's go to the gaining experience, which is very key, where people tend to not be able to relate. And tell me, which ones of this are you already doing? Or which one surprises you, apart from be patient? Any thoughts? Or which ones do you think you're not sure how it works?
I've been doing some of everything. I think it's really good that LinkedIn is the space that it is, because it's provided me an opportunity to network with a lot of people who are in Scrum or who are just starting out. And then even when I got my certification, I made sure that we all exchanged our LinkedIn IDs so that we could connect on LinkedIn after class. Which has been very beneficial because we've all been able to exchange information and different things that we found online. Absolutely.
Certification, and you will find out I didn't put anything certification here. But when you do attend any of the certification, you would find that there are people who are already on that journey. They've gotten their first role or perhaps their second role, and now they want to have a confirmation of their knowledge or experience. Certification will be something that they will do. So connect with those people. And one thing with Scrum Master role is that it's all about people you know. I've been contracting for some time, and a lot of the jobs that I've done has not been something I applied for. Either a referral, someone I've worked with in the past, or someone that knows me within the community that would reach out and say, hey, I have a job going on. Can you join? And there has been instances where I have interviewed and we were just communicating, or we're just having conversations around what I've done, and it didn't seem like an interview to me, but to them, that was them getting to know me. I thought, oh, okay, that's great, because they already know what I do from the person I referred. So another thing with the community is very great with is that if you ask for someone's 5 minutes, I can assure you that they would gladly give you that 5 minutes. They would even give you 10 minutes, right? Because we're always happy to see people who wants to become part of the community. It's a huge community and a very friendly one. That's probably, this is probably the only community I have felt like, yes, they're family, because you go to conferences and someone that you haven't even met is hugging you, giving you a hug and say, hey, it's nice to meet you. And thinking, have we met? No, we haven't, but we belong to the same community. Create a task board. I think this is a place where you can start easily. One of the principles of Kanban is that you start where you are, right? Even looking at Kanban, you can start to practice the principles and the practices of Kanban. So start where you are right now. If it's a workplace and you can't get buy-in, start with yours. I work with a finance department. I think that was the most challenging teams I've ever worked with, in the sense that he had a lot of red tapes. And eventually they all had to settle for Kanban. And it wasn't even a joint Kanban board. It was an individual, because there were so many rules that one person couldn't see the other person's. It's just all fuzzy for me. So you can actually create your own Kanban Kanban board, so that people know what you're working on. If you are reached to the limit and someone says, hey, can you help me with this? And you just point them to your task board and say, look at it. That's how much I have to do. Organize an event. Jenna is going to organize, take over, so to say, organize a wedding over. And so, which is a great place to start if you have something coming up. And it doesn't have to be a huge thing like a wedding. It could be it could be a holiday that you're going for. COVID is a little bit, the rules are a little bit relaxed now. So organize your own vacation, or your friends going on a retreat. You could do that. And you could also attend meetups, conferences. Ask for the host that you want to be part of it to organize it, and you get to meet people, connect with people there, and also gain experience. I was part of the organizing committee of the first regional Scrum gathering here in Canada, and we had a Scrum Master. Yes, it was a Scrum Alliance event, and you would think, yeah, it makes sense to have a Scrum Master, but this person was learning to become a Scrum Master. And guess what? They got a job, I think, a year after the event. And it's because they were utilizing the chances that they have, and approaching people to say, hey, can I help you organize your event and become a Scrum Master there? Seek out mentoring. It is not just about becoming a Scrum Master or Agile coach. It's about anything that you do. Seek a mentor or a coach. It helps. And freelancing, there are a lot of pay-per-hour where you can actually place an advert that you are a Scrum Master. You can help organize things. And last but not the least, be patient. It would help you a lot. And I just kind of like put some instances in which you can replicate the Scrum events in your day-to-day life. And for instance, the daily Scrum, you could change it to auto. Some people call it auto anyway. And just do a quick thing, even with yourself, just do it. Because when you're doing this, you learn, you have your own story to put together. You are reflecting on what did you do well or what didn't go well, or what you can improve upon. And all those things, when it comes to interview, it becomes second nature to you, because you can talk about it, you can speak to it and all. All right, and this is the references that I mentioned. It will be in the slide deck that I will share with this recording. If anything interests you there, please look at it. This is a Scrum for kids. There's around the chores, and then creating and leadership. I mentioned about the guy, the boy who was autistic, and the family used it. And then organizing a professional was about the boy that had cerebral palsy, and they used it. And then the Scrum wedding, and that's it. All right, I know we are really on time, and any questions that you might have, please feel free to scan the code and connect with me on LinkedIn. I will be more than happy to give you 15 minutes if you want to learn more about how I personally get into it, or give you more pointers into it, starting your journey. All right. Thank you so much.
Thank you for holding this space.
Thank you, Renee.
Yeah, indeed. I concur. Thank you so much for your time.
Great. Thank you for joining, and thank you for your time too.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Bye, Kimmy.
Bye, Jenna.